Alright, so my water lines come up from the other side of the house through the floor here, so I'm going to change over to PEX, like right here. You go up, I got to move this sink over, and then run a new line here for a sink, or replace that shower valve. Moving the toilet from here to over here, so I have a water line there for the toilet. Gonna eliminate that, replacing this shower valve, moving the shower valve over to this wall, keeping the shower head over there, and I gotta move that drain. Like I said, move the toilet. Gotta jog this 3-inch line over a little bit to make room for the Y there where my toilet's gonna connect, and then that's it. Replace all the plumbing for both bathrooms in this wall. And then I already got a big shower pan going in here. I expanded the original shower, made it a little bit wider, a little bit deeper. Okay, the water is off. But before I do anything else, before I even cut a water line, since we're going to be redoing these drains, I'm going to do somewhat of a lockout tagout to prevent a disaster. Okay, so now I'm ready to cut these lines, and then I think I've decided I'm going to put valves in this wall here with a little access panel from the inside part of the bathroom. And that way I can cut the water off just to the upstairs restrooms without cutting off the rest of the house. And that'll allow me to open up the bottom floors and get the water back onto the house, but still have the water completely off upstairs here. So that's going to be my first run. It's just from there right to this wall. Just gonna use my little handy pipe cutting tool here. Just got a little blade in there. You just put it on the pipe, spin it around, cuts it right into. And this will work for PEX or polybutylene. Be sure and throw down a rag while you're cutting this. Alright, so now that those are cut, I'm going to go ahead and remove all the polybutylene from both bathrooms. So let the plumbing removal begin. No turning back now. So making good progress. There was a lot more water in the lines than I thought there would be. I'd opened up the sink on the other side of this wall, then I opened up the sink downstairs trying to drain everything, but you see that little Tupperware container down there? I filled up one of those completely full. I had to empty it, and then it took on some more as well. So definitely have a rag or a container on hand to catch any water. Alright, So now that I've got the water lines from here over to here out of the way, I'm gonna go ahead and run in, put in my new valves here for the second floor restrooms. That way I can cut the water back on for the lower floors in the house. So now that I've looked at it, where I put my valves, I think is actually gonna be over on this side instead of here where these holes are, just because I have more space below the joist. Over here on this side, I hit the ceiling right here, so I'd have to go through the joist unless I try to bring those lines all the way around here and back up and down and then spin them around again. It'd be much neater, much easier if I can just come straight across and then go straight up through this bottom plate here. So to do that, I need to, or I want to get rid of this fitting. So I'm going to cut my 2-inch line here. I'll cut the 2-inch line above this fitting here, and then put in a new 2-inch piece without this. This was for the old bathtub that was here, the old drain. But I can't remove this completely because that is a vent that feeds into this 3-inch line, and I haven't studied my plumbing enough to know if this vent would be safe to cap off. So I'm not going to cap it. Plus, it's not good to cap vents, because if I were to cut this and just put a cap on it and leave it hanging here, eventually it's going to fill it with water and debris, because this is exposed outside where it goes through the roof. So you don't want to ever cap a vent and just leave it in the wall. You'd have to go up on the roof and remove it and patch the roof. So I'm going to keep it intact and just remove this one fitting. So the best way to cut this is with a Sawzall, and I'm using a metal cutting blade. Alright, so I'm just going to make sure my pipe hasn't slipped down any, and I'm going to measure down just to within a maybe 3 inches of the bottom plate there, so about 23 inches. So I'm going to use a 23-inch piece of 1.5 inch, and then I'll measure from there to down there to get my 2-inch measurement. Taking into consideration there'll be a little bit of loss for this reducer here from 2 inch to 1.5 inch, and this will go right here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a 23-inch piece. As you saw, I cut this with the chop saw, and it provides a really clean, smooth, straight cut. So I'm going to go ahead and attach these, put on the reducer. And the reason why I'm starting here at the top and working my way down is because I don't have a repair coupling for the 1.5 inch. I only have one for the 2 inch. So this will be the last piece I put in. The 2 inch you can slide completely over the pipe, do your glue on both pipes, and then slide it down over, because there's no inner lip there. Versus, you can see the 1.5 inch I have, you know, it has that lip to keep it from going too far over the end of the pipe. So I'm just going to apply the primer at this end, going at the other end while I'm at it. Put primer on my piece of PVC where I'm going. Once that dries for just a few seconds, I'm going to put on my cement. Go ahead and put my fitting on this side. And now I'm going to put more cement. And then slide it onto my pipe here. Okay. also going to, you can see that sliding down. I want to make sure this is all the way up when I go to install everything. So I'm going to go ahead and put my primer in my fitting here. And I can go ahead and primer this fitting as well. Now let's go ahead and cement my reducer. Okay, reducer's on. Let's go set that there to hold it up. Now I need to measure and cut for my 2-inch piece there. All right, so I'm just going to measure my pipe below the floor, just right to the edge. Make sure this is all the way up, right to the edge of that. It's right at a 10 3/8. And then since I only measured to the edge of this, I'm going to add another 5/8 for how much the pipe is going to go through here. So that's going to be 11 inches. All right, so I've got my 11-inch piece. I'm just going to primer the ends of this. And I'm going to go ahead and primer my piece underneath here. Okay, let's do a little test. Make sure I have the size correct before we start gluing this in. Looks like it's going to be just fine right there. So okay, so I'm going to take this sleeve. This is the what they call a repair sleeve, and a piece that doesn't have a stop in the middle of it. I'm going to slide it completely over my 2-inch pipe if I can. There we go. Oh. That primer is making it sticky. Alright, so now my sleeve is completely above my joint. So what I'm going to do is cement both these pieces and then slide my sleeve down over it. But before I do that, I'm going to do the top. Alright, so the top, I can actually force this top up just enough to get it over here, and then I'll slide it back down. So I'm just going to put my cement here and here. I'm going to slide that over just like that. Okay. Now let's go back down to the repair sleeve. I'm going to cement all the way around here, and the lower piece. Be sure you can get all the way around. Don't want any little drips coming through there. And we'll just line that up. We'll go slide our sleeve down as quickly as possible, but not too far. Perfect. And that should be it. Once that dries, that will be watertight. Okay, now that gets rid of that one sanitary tee we have in there. So that gives me plenty of room. I've got this whole section for my 2 water lines that come up. I'll have my 2 valves here, and then the 2 water lines that go back down under the floor. So then I'll have kind of a shut off for the 2 restrooms here. So let's get it done. We'll start by drilling 4 holes right here. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I am going to have an access panel. So when I put the valves in, I want to have them turned so that when I turn the valves off, the handles are sticking out of the access panel and not towards the wall on the other side, because that may prevent me or make it difficult to get them turned off all the way. So I want to make sure these come out into the opening of the access panel. So I can really turn them both the same way if I wanted. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I turn them like this. And then I'll have, say the hot coming up like so. And this is not the right size, but I'll have the hot coming back down like right beside it. And then I'll have a couple of elbows like so. So the hot will come up to the valve will be open, and it'll come right back down in the 2 middle holes. In the cold, we'll do the same thing. The cold will come up, go up to a little bit higher, go over the hot. That's out of camera there. But the cold will come up, go over the hot, and then back down the other side like this. So the hot will be here, cold will be here. Step a little bit closer, because I only have about 7 inches between the vent and the stud here. So this is right at, let's see, it's about 7.5 inches. So I just have to make sure these are as close as possible together, like so, which should be fine. Now we're at about 6 3/4 inches, with these being a little bit spaced apart. So that shouldn't be any issue. So let's get rocking and rolling. If you haven't used these before, these are the PEX. You just look for PEX on the packaging. Right here, it'll say PEX. So that's what you want to get. And these come by themselves. They don't come with the rings that go on it to clamp them down onto the pipe. So you'll have to buy these rings separately. So you'll just slide that on there, put this in, and then crimp it. So we're going to start by kind of measuring up about how high we want our first valve. We'll do the cold first, and we'll see how high we want this. We'll measure down to about where we think we want it underneath the floor, and that'll be the first piece we cut. And then there's also a variety of different clamps to hold these in place. These are really meant to either hang it from the bottom of a joist with the line hanging in here, or you can put it on the side of a joist with the line there. These you just nail wherever you want to hold your PEX, and that'll go straight in there just like that. You can just nail this into place. So then it can't come out. Can't come out because it'll be against the stud where you nail it. So I'm going my valve about on the cold side, because I'll do the cold on the outside, hot in the middle. So the cold side, I'm gonna make it the lowest, probably about right here. So from the floor to where my PEX is gonna end on this valve is about 7 inches. And add another 5/8 here, so we're at 7 5/8. And this is, sorry about that, 7 5/8 for the floor, for the subfloor sheathing here. So then another 7.5 inches for the floor joist. So now we're at about 15 1/8. Then another 1/8 is where the PEX is gonna hang below the floor joist. I'm gonna use one of these hangers, mount it just like this, and the PEX will be hanging just below the floor joist like that. So it'll come into here, it'll turn, I'll have an elbow, then it'll come straight up to the floor here. So now I forgot all my measurements, but I think that was about 15 1/4 inches where I want my PEX to end in the wall. So let me cut that piece. We'll be ready to start making connections. Now, depending on the size job you're doing, you can get this in 25-foot rolls, 50-foot rolls, probably bigger. And you can also get just 8-foot straight sticks of it, and I think also 2-foot sticks. So you kind of select your product based on the job you're doing. This is white. You can use white for hot or cold, it doesn't matter, but you'll see in your big box stores they also have blue and red if you wanted to color code. Matter of fact, I believe I have some blue and red I'll be using later in the 1/2 inch size. So go ahead and make my first cut. Okay, so when you unroll this, it will be curled up a bit. It will straighten out. It just takes a little bit of convincing. You can see that piece is looking much straighter now. But I do notice that the end is cut kind of at an angle, so I'm going to start by cutting off the very end of it here. So make sure it's as straight as I want it. Much better. So I think I'm going to make this first piece about 15 1/2 inches. About right here. I know it does cut better if you have it straight. Sometimes if it's curved, your cutter will tend to move over a little bit to one side or the other, and then your cut, you'll have a little tail piece on your cut. Excellent. Now that's for the cold side. The hot side, the valve is going to sit a little bit higher. We'll offset these just a bit. So I'll offset these about 3 1/2 inches. The first one was 15 1/2. So I'll make this 19 inches. Alright, so these two pieces are good. They'll come up. I'll have the valves So we'll just straighten these up as we put them in. Now, before I put the valves on here, I'm actually going to run the horizontal piece that goes over to where the main feed is coming in. So let's measure for that next. So there's my two lines. I'm actually going to run them down this side of this stud right here. And then I'll kind of let them come down underneath this 2x4 running across. And then they'll come under that, and then they'll take a right turn right about here and come straight across to where my holes are. So I'm just going to measure from these holes over to that stud, take into account a little bit for the fittings, probably about 1/2 inch on each end, and I'm going to go ahead and cut those. Okay, that was 37 3/4. I'm actually going to take off 1 inch off of each end for the fittings. So we'll bring that down to 35 3/4. Alright, so now we're ready to put these together. I'm going to go ahead and slide your rings on. Don't forget to put the ring on. It's not super important now because you could always slide it on from the other end if you forgot it. But as you're putting things together, eventually you won't be able to do that. So it's just easier to go ahead and put them on beforehand. Put our fittings in. Then the little tool you use to crimp these looks just like this. It's got a spot for a 3/4 inch and a spot for 1/2 inch. I think I got this for 60 bucks, and this is the Shark Bite brand. So you're going to slide your ring down to about maybe 1/4 inch from where the fitting is. Open that up. Now they do have, you see how wide I'm opening this. They do have more expensive tools like this that you don't have to open this quite as wide, that allow you to get into small spaces between joists and up into corners. So that is one disadvantage to this, but these go from, like I said, about 60 or 70 bucks up to $200, $300. So the more expensive will have more features, like how easy it is to crimp, and how wide you have to open the jaws, how long the tool is. So I'm going to put this here in the 3/4 spot, and you just want to center this ring right in the middle of the tool here. Make sure this is in the right spot. There we go. So that's all there is to it. Checkmate to the guys that want to solder copper for this. This is pretty easy. Anybody can do it. No skill required. and mount these, or not mount them, but put them through the floor and put the valves on the end. And you see these fittings just have straight rings around them. So once you put the PEX on here, they will actually, it actually turns. You can actually spin these around. I don't know if you can tell that it's spinning or not. Yeah, so I just spun that all the way around. So they will move, and you can kind of adjust the angles, which comes in handy when you're putting this into place, making the final connections. All right, let's move over to our wall. Because these things are a little bit wily, still have that curve to them, I'm going to go ahead and put on the brackets to hold them steady, and to make sure it keeps the height where I want it as I work on the valves. So like I said, these will just mount right to the bottom of this 2x8 here. Just like that. And I'll put two more on this side. All right, let's use my second favorite fastener next to the drywall screw, which is just a simple roofing nail. You could also just use regular drywall screws in there, just with the angle of being above and trying to get down there with my drill. I think it'll be easier just to use a nail. These do kind of grip tight, but you can still move the PEX back and forth a little bit. So when I get these straightened up, I can still move that where it needs to be. Now let's move up to the valves. So valves are in, and I'm ready to go ahead and connect these two ends to the feed that comes up to the second floor, which is right there. So that's our next piece. I'm going to go ahead and secure those to the bottom of that floor joist, just to make sure my measurements are accurate. And then I'll cut the pieces for this length. Okay, I'm going to cut my next pieces here for this run. I did cut them a little bit long, they're probably 4 or 5 inches too long. I'm going to go ahead and connect them down here to the polybutylene, and then I'm going to fasten them to this floor joist running across, and then I'll cut them to length when I get down here to my other PEX. So let's talk about the polybutylene for a second. When you're switching from polybutylene to PEX, what you'll want to do if you have it, you want to get some special PEX adapters. It'll say polybutylene adapter here, 3/4 PB. So that's what you want to get. They have, I'll take this out of the package. So you'll see they have a special copper ring, and the fitting is different on each side. So where you have all the small rings across here has a little bit slightly sharper edge on it, and the copper ring goes there. And that's because the polybutylene is a different thickness, different size, and then it also provides a ring for the PEX side. So it'll go just like that. So let's put this on. And then now we can attach the pecs to the poly. I'm gonna put my sleeves on. Alright, so now I'm ready to put my elbows on these lines. And yes, I probably could have run one line from the polybutylene all the way around and just made this one big curved piece and not had elbows here. But I wasn't exactly sure how I wanted to run these, and I was trying to keep them neat, so I'll use the elbows. So before I make these up, I'm going to mark which one is the hot line, and then follow back to the valve and see which one of the other ones is the hot line, these two up here. So I'm gonna do that real quick. Okay, so following back to the polybutylene that I had marked as hot is this line on the bottom. It's gonna be the hot. And my valve, let's do the inside valve as hot, so that's gonna be this one. Okay, I don't know if you can see this or not, but my crimp ring didn't go on quite straight and it looks kind of warped. So I'm going to cut this piece off and do a new one. So they have another tool, looks like this. And this is made for cutting these rings without damaging the fitting. So it's got a smooth side here, it's a little bit rounded, and it's got a sharp edge there. So that smooth rounded side goes inside the fitting, and then the sharp edge goes right there on the ring. You should be able to cut this, and there it just snapped. Cut that ring right there. So then, yeah, you just have to work with it a while to get the ring off of there, and then you'll have to, you know, kind of work at it to get the pecs off of there as well, unless you don't mind throwing away a fitting. So, but I don't have any more fittings, and I don't want to go back to the store right now, so I'm going to try to get this off of here. But you will need a tool to cut the ring, for sure. Of course, you want to double check every ring on every fitting you put in to make sure you crimped it, because you can see this one is not installed yet, so that could be devastating. All right, so got my polybutylene coming from the basement. Change over to pecs. All those are crimped on. Pecs comes, makes a turn, comes down here, and comes right up through the floor to two valves right here. Both these valves are off. I want to make sure they're all the way off. And then I'm going to turn the water on, check out all these fittings I have on here, make sure there's no leaks. That way the water can be on to the first floor, the kitchen, there's a bathroom down there as well as the basement. So we can get water flowing again, showers going, toilets flowing downstairs. And then once that's done, I'll start working on the drains. All this drainage has to be reconfigured. So let's check this out, see if it holds. Okay, the water is on. No drips, no drips, no drips. Valves are holding good. So now on to the next step. So now that I have that done and capped off, we have water to the rest of the house. I'm going to go ahead and remove all of the remaining polybutylene. But once that's done, I'll start pulling out all of this PVC to get that rerouted, and this toilet moved over. That's the big issue there, is this toilet fitting in there. So I've got a lot of pieces to put together. I think it's going to work. Alright, where the plumbing removals come along, there's where the old shower hardware was. Got the sink hardware out, the toilet lines gone. The last thing is the tub in the other bathroom. And which made me just realize I got to remove this piece of drywall. So I'm going to take out this entire piece of drywall here, and I'll remove all that hardware. So there's all the polybutylene I pulled out of the bathroom. That's for both of the upstairs bathrooms. And if you're wondering why polybutylene is so bad, I'll put a link down in the summary that'll explain exactly why you should not have polybutylene in your house. There's also a link to the next plumbing video where I'm going to be removing all the PVC drain lines. And that is it. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and also leave a comment. And we'll see you next time.